Long ago, in a vast empire that dominated lands and seas, a prince was born whose destiny was to rule. His name echoed through the corridors of palaces and temples, promising an era of prosperity. From childhood, he was groomed to lead, learning about laws, diplomacy, and war. However, before he could ascend the throne, something unexpected happened. He simply vanished. The empire was in shock. How could someone so protected disappear without a trace? Guards were sent to search for him, but no trail was found. Gradually, rumors began to circulate among the subjects. Some said he had been kidnapped by political rivals. Others believed he had fled because he didn't want the burden of the crown. But no one truly knew the truth. The king's advisors tried to hide the case to avoid chaos in the empire. After all, the absence of an heir could weaken the government and cause rebellions. Thus, they kept absolute secrecy about the prince's whereabouts while seeking solutions. For years, the people lived under the shadow of this uncertainty, fueling theories and speculation. It is said that the prince's father, the emperor, was never the same after the disappearance. He became isolated, consumed by guilt and regret. Some accounts tell that he ordered relentless searches for his son until the day of his death, but all failed. The throne eventually passed to a distant uncle, causing dissatisfaction among the nobles. Among the commoners, legends about the lost prince emerged. Many swore they saw signs of his presence in remote places, a man walking alone in the mountains or an unknown knight helping villages in distress. These stories gave hope to those who still dreamed of his triumphant return. The official records barely mention the case, as if it were a torn page from history. Modern historians debate whether the disappearance was planned or the result of unforeseen circumstances. Some sources suggest conspiracies within the palace itself, involving people close to the young prince. Even today, centuries later, the mystery continues to intrigue experts and curious minds. There are those who believe secret documents hold clues to the heir's whereabouts. Others argue that the prince may have adopted a new identity, living as a common citizen far from royal responsibilities. Regardless of the truth, this story remains alive in collective memory. It symbolizes the quest for freedom and authenticity, universal themes that resonate across any era. For many, the prince who never reigned became more than a man. He transformed into an eternal myth. Moving forward, we will explore the possible reasons for the disappearance and its consequences for the empire. We will investigate the most popular theories and reveal surprising details known to few. Stay tuned, as each piece of this puzzle is crucial to understanding the enigma. So far, it has become clear that the prince's disappearance deeply shook the political and emotional structure of an entire civilization. But what really happened to him? This question remains unanswered, leaving room for imagination and research. Continue following to uncover more about this fascinating historical episode. Before delving into the theories, we need to go back to the exact moment of the disappearance. It all began on a foggy morning when the prince was supposed to attend an important ceremony at the palace. It was a momentous event where he would officially be introduced to the council as the future ruler. However, he never arrived at the designated location. The servants noticed his absence only hours later when they found his quarters empty. On the table, there were scattered papers and an abandoned quill, as if he had been writing something before leaving. Strangely, he was wearing the same clothes he had worn the day before, indicating haste or lack of planning. Witnesses claimed to have seen the prince riding toward the forests at dawn. A guard confirmed that he exited the gates without an escort, unusual for someone of his status. This raised suspicions about whether he left voluntarily or was forced to do so by some external force. Upon examining the prince's belongings, the advisors found a sealed diary. Inside were confusing notes about fear and loneliness. He wrote about the weight of being constantly watched and judged, along with doubts about his ability to lead. These words led some to believe he chose to abandon everything. However, other evidence contradicts this hypothesis. A servant reported seeing masked men lurking around the palace the night before the disappearance. Additionally, 2 guards patrolling the area were found unconscious near the stables. This suggests there was external interference. Another intriguing detail is that the prince carried with him a medallion given to him by his mother on her deathbed. This object was never recovered, despite its immense value. To some, this proves that he did not plan to leave forever. After all, why would he leave behind something so precious? The searches conducted by the soldiers covered vast regions, including dense forests, remote villages, and even enemy territories. Despite the efforts, nothing was found. The only traces were horse tracks that disappeared into a rushing river, making it impossible to continue tracking. As time passed, frustration gripped the empire. The emperor ordered severe punishments for anyone who failed in the mission to find the prince. However, these measures only increased the climate of tension and distrust among the servants and palace staff. Even so, the case remained unsolved. Each new clue seemed to lead to a dead end, fueling the mystery even further. Did the prince deliberately escape? Or was he the victim of a conspiracy larger than anyone could imagine? These questions remain unanswered. With the prince's disappearance, the palace plunged into a whirlpool of intrigue and suspicion. The nobles began questioning who might have had an interest in removing the legitimate heir from the throne. Among the rumors circulating through the corridors, one theory stood out, involving the prince's uncle, known for his insatiable ambition. This uncle, Lord Cedric, was famous for his diplomatic skills and charisma in winning allies. However, he was also known for his unquenchable thirst for power. Many believed he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate any obstacle in his path, including his own nephew. Curiously, Lord Cedric was seen in secret meetings with influential figures shortly before the disappearance. These encounters were justified as routine discussions about politics, but some attentive counselors noticed strange behaviors. He appeared anxious, avoiding eye contact and leaving the rooms hastily. Another element that raised suspicions was the sudden replacement of the prince's personal guard. Only weeks before disappearing, the young prince had lost his trusted guards and was accompanied by unknown soldiers. Some speculate this was part of a plan to facilitate his capture or forced departure. Among the servants, darker stories emerged. One of them reported hearing screams coming from the prince's chambers on that fateful night. When he tried to investigate, he was stopped by guards who claimed it was just a fight between friends. However, no one ever knew who these supposed friends were. The emperor, realizing the growing tensions, ordered an internal investigation. However, the results were inconclusive. Important documents disappeared, witnesses changed their versions, and crucial leads evaporated. To many, this indicated that someone within the palace was sabotaging the search for the truth. A key figure in this scenario was Lady Alara, the prince's tutor. She had been responsible for teaching him since childhood and was considered a second mother. After the disappearance, she became visibly shaken, refusing to leave her quarters. Some said she knew more than she admitted. The rumors gained strength when Lady Alara began receiving anonymous threats. Sealed letters with sinister marks arrived at her door, demanding silence about unspecified matters. Although she never publicly revealed the content of these messages, her fear was evident to everyone around her. Eventually, she decided to break her silence, sending a coded letter to the emperor. In it, she mentioned names and dates that could prove a conspiracy against the prince. Unfortunately, the letter never reached its destination. It was intercepted and destroyed before reaching the emperor. These fragmented revelations left the empire on the brink of collapse. The people began losing faith in the monarchy, while the nobles waged silent battles for political control. All the while, the whereabouts of the prince remained shrouded in mystery, becoming an open wound in the empire's history. While the palace buzzed with conspiracies and accusations, ordinary citizens sought answers in signs and omens. It was common at the time to interpret natural events as divine manifestations, and the prince's disappearance was no exception. Many saw hidden meanings in phenomena that occurred during that period. On the night the prince disappeared, reports speak of red clouds covering the sky, as if the horizon was bleeding. Astronomers of the time claimed it was a bad omen, symbolizing the end of an era and the beginning of uncertain times. For the religious, it was a warning from the gods. Additionally, there were reports of animals behaving unusually. Wild horses invaded villages near the palace, causing widespread chaos. Migratory birds, which normally followed predictable routes, drastically changed their flight patterns, spreading across unexplored regions. These events coincided with the disappearance of other sacred objects of the empire. Ancient relics, kept in the main temples, vanished without explanation. It was said they were linked to the prince's fate, and their absence meant that something terrible had occurred or was about to happen. Spiritual leaders convened purification ceremonies to appease divine wrath. During these celebrations, oracles entered trances, delivering enigmatic messages. One of them declared, "The chosen one will return when the waters dry up and the mountains speak." To this day, this prophecy is debated by scholars. Popular legends associated the prince with mythical figures, such as the Eternal Wanderer, a hero who roamed the world helping those in need. Some people swore they had seen a mysterious gray-clad man near devastated villages, offering food and guidance. He always departed before dawn, leaving only gratitude behind. These stories fueled the hope that the prince wasn't dead but was living anonymously among the less fortunate. For common citizens, this made sense. He had always demonstrated genuine concern for the people's well-being. Perhaps he had decided to abandon luxury to find real purpose. However, not all interpretations were positive. In some regions, it was believed the prince had been cursed by evil forces. According to these versions, he had been transformed into an ethereal creature, condemned to wander the borders of the mortal world until someone broke the curse. Regardless of the explanations, the cultural impact of the case was immense. Artists began depicting the prince in paintings, music, and poems, each work reflecting different facets of the mystery. His images adorned humble homes and grand cathedrals, solidifying his position as a symbol of resistance and renewal. Understanding these collective perceptions is crucial to comprehending how the disappearance shaped the empire's identity. In the next chapters, we will explore the political and social consequences of this event, as well as analyze modern attempts to solve the enigma. Stay with us on this fascinating journey. With the prince's disappearance, the empire faced an unprecedented crisis. The absence of a legitimate heir created a power vacuum that quickly turned into fierce disputes between rival factions. Nobles, generals, and even religious leaders began fighting for influence, each trying to shape the monarchy's future in their own way. Lord Cedric, the ambitious uncle, was the first to act. He temporarily assumed the role of regent, claiming it was necessary to maintain order in the kingdom. However, his controversial decisions, such as increasing taxes and suppressing protests, generated dissatisfaction among the subjects. Many began questioning whether he truly had the people's welfare in mind or was merely consolidating his dominance. Meanwhile, the emperor's most loyal counselors tried to resist the changes imposed by Lord Cedric. They argued that any significant decision should be postponed until the prince's whereabouts were clarified. However, without concrete proof that the heir was still alive, their voices were drowned out by growing political pressure. The tensions culminated in an incident known as the Night of Long Knives. During a banquet at the palace, two rival nobles exchanged public accusations of treason and conspiracy. The verbal confrontation quickly escalated into violence, resulting in both deaths and leaving permanent scars on the relationships between noble houses. The emperor, already weakened by his son's disappearance, became even more isolated after these events. He came to trust almost exclusively Lady Alara, who, despite her own anguish, remained a central figure in the palace. Her presence was seen as a link to the past, when the empire still seemed stable. However, not everyone accepted this situation. Some nobles began openly conspiring against the emperor, demanding that he abdicate in favor of a younger and more energetic ruler. This campaign gained strength among the military, who feared losing prestige amid political instability. To complicate matters further, rebels began emerging in distant provinces. Inspired by the chaos at the center of power, they declared independence and formed small armies. Though initially disorganized, these groups soon became a real threat to imperial control. The official response was swift but ineffective. Troops sent to suppress the revolts often deserted or joined the insurgents, fueling the cycle of disorder even more. For the common people, this was seen as proof that the empire's fate lay in the hands of invisible and unpredictable forces. In the midst of this chaos, popular movements clamoring for the lost prince's return arose. They organized processions and demonstrations, believing his presence would restore harmony. These acts of collective faith irritated Lord Cedric, who saw them as a direct threat to his authority. Despite all efforts to control the narrative, the prince's disappearance continued to haunt the empire. Every decision made by the leaders was judged under the shadow of this tragedy, making it impossible to escape its influence. The once unified empire now seemed on the verge of total collapse. In the next chapters, we will explore how these tensions directly affected the lives of ordinary citizens and analyze the strategies used by the rebels to challenge the central government. We will also investigate new clues about the prince's possible whereabouts, including surprising testimonies. Stay tuned to unravel more of this historical enigma. While the nobles fought their battles in the palace halls, the impact of the prince's disappearance echoed deeply among ordinary citizens. For them, the heir was more than just a name. He represented hope in times of uncertainty. His absence brought tangible consequences that affected daily life for thousands. In rural villages, farmers felt the effects of the economic policies implemented by Lord Cedric. Taxes increased drastically, suffocating families who could barely sustain their homes. Many abandoned their lands in search of better conditions, migrating to large cities where misery also reigned. Markets, once vibrant centers of commerce, began to wither. Artists and artisans, whose works depended on noble patronage, saw their incomes plummet. Without the cultural support provided by the prince, who had always championed the arts, the empire's creative spirit seemed to vanish along with him. Even so, the people found ways to resist. Songs and stories about the lost prince became part of local folklore, transmitted orally from generation to generation. These narratives were laden with symbolism, portraying him as a savior destined to return and restore justice. Children played wandering prince, pretending to search for clues about his whereabouts in imaginary woods. Even adults participated in these fantasies, creating fictional maps and secret organizations dedicated to the cause. For many, these activities were a form of escapism in the face of harsh reality. However, not all reactions were so idealistic. In some regions, clandestine groups promoting sabotage against the government emerged. They claimed to be fighting in the prince's name, although they never had proof of his consent or involvement. These popular movements worried the authorities, who responded with violent repression. Entire villages were punished for allegedly supporting the rebels, leading to the destruction of homes and fields. The brutality only fueled more anger, perpetuating the cycle of revolt and retaliation. Interestingly, some religious leaders took advantage of the occasion to strengthen their influence. They claimed the prince's disappearance was a divine test, encouraging the faithful to demonstrate absolute devotion. This discourse attracted crowds, especially among those seeking spiritual comfort. Another interesting phenomenon was the proliferation of false prophets. Opportunistic individuals began proclaiming themselves emissaries of the prince, promising revelations and miraculous solutions. Despite many being exposed, others managed to gather loyal followers, exploiting collective vulnerability. Still, there were those who maintained genuine faith in the prince's return. They organized nighttime vigils, lighting candles in public squares while singing traditional songs. These acts of silent unity showed that, even amidst chaos, hope remained alive in the hearts of the people. In the next chapters, we will delve deeper into the connections between these popular movements and the efforts to find the prince. We will also reveal details about recently discovered documents that may shed light on his fate. Stay tuned to continue this fascinating journey. Years after the prince's disappearance, an unexpected discovery brought new clues to light. In a remote monastery hidden in the icy northern mountains, monks found an ancient chest sealed with the royal family's crest. Inside, there were documents that would forever change the understanding of the case. The parchments were in poor condition, but experts managed to decipher crucial parts of their content. Among them, a letter written by the prince himself shortly before his disappearance stood out. In it, he expressed his frustration with the oppressive expectations imposed by the crown and revealed plans to leave in search of freedom. However, the letter also contained ambiguous phrases that raised more questions than answers. He mentioned hidden forces, trying to manipulate him, and spoke of a path drawn by invisible hands. To some historians, this suggests he was aware of a conspiracy against him, or perhaps imagined things due to constant stress. Another intriguing document was a detailed list of names and dates. It appeared to be a record of secret meetings between important figures of the empire, including Lord Cedric and religious leaders. Although there were no clear explanations about the purpose of these gatherings, they coincided with the days preceding the disappearance. Maps with routes marked in red ink were also found. These trails led to distant locations, such as deserted islands and unexplored forests. Some theories suggest the prince planned to flee to one of these places, while others believe these routes were part of a trap prepared for him. Curiously, one of the maps pointed to a cave known as the Mouth of Forgetfulness, famous for its legends of mystical portals. Some believed anyone who entered would never return to the mortal world. This connection fueled speculation that the prince might have ventured into this forbidden place. The documents also included accounts from anonymous witnesses. One claimed to have seen the prince talking to a hooded stranger on the night of his disappearance. The man carried a glowing staff and seemed to emit an ethereal aura. When questioned, he simply said, "Fate is inevitable." This information was initially met with skepticism, but gained credibility as other artifacts began to surface. In an isolated village, a medallion identical to the one lost by the prince was found buried near ancient ruins. Tests confirmed it belonged to the same royal collection. Based on this evidence, some modern theories began gaining traction. One proposes the prince was the victim of a mystical ritual conducted by a secret cult within the empire. Another suggests he voluntarily chose to abandon his former life to seek spiritual enlightenment in unknown lands. Regardless of the truth, the documents revealed the case was far more complex than previously thought. Each new clue seemed to open doors to even greater mysteries, keeping the flame of curiosity and investigation alive. In the next chapters, we will explore these theories in detail and present surprising testimonies from people who claim to have crossed paths with the prince years after his disappearance. Decades after the disappearance, experts continue debating the prince's whereabouts. Among the most popular theories, 3 stand out as the most plausible, though each has its own paradoxes and inconsistencies. Let's explore them to better understand what might have happened. The first theory argues the prince was the victim of a political conspiracy led by Lord Cedric. According to this line of thought, he was captured and held captive for years, prevented from communicating with the outside world. Circumstantial evidence, such as the secret meetings mentioned in the documents, supports this hypothesis. However, this theory faces significant problems. If the prince were alive, why had no one ever been able to find him? Moreover, historical records show Lord Cedric died just a few years after ascending the throne, never confessing involvement in the case. This raises doubts about his ability to keep such a secret until the end. The second theory is more dramatic. It suggests the prince was assassinated on orders from someone close to the palace. Supporters of this idea point to the lack of concrete evidence of his survival and argue the body may have been hidden or destroyed to avoid scandal. However, without material evidence, this version remains speculative. The third and most controversial theory involves supernatural elements. Inspired by the maps and accounts of anonymous witnesses, it proposes the prince crossed a mystical portal and was transported to another plane of existence. While sounding fantastical, this explanation finds support in ancient legends and the mysterious objects associated with the case. Some researchers have tried to unify these theories, creating hybrid narratives. For example, some believe the prince was initially kidnapped by a secret cult and later subjected to a ritual that separated him from the mortal world. This approach combines aspects of the political and mystical theories, though it lacks conclusive evidence. Parallel to this, contemporary accounts have added new layers to the mystery. An elderly merchant claimed to have encountered a man dressed as a wanderer in a distant tavern decades ago. The man wore a medallion similar to the prince's and spoke of fulfilling a greater destiny. When the merchant tried to follow the stranger, he vanished without a trace. Another testimony came from a woman who swore she had been saved by a mysterious night during a devastating storm. She described impressive details matching the prince's descriptions, including unique scars reported in official biographies. However, the lack of physical evidence makes validating these stories difficult. To complicate matters further, archaeologists recently discovered ruins on an island mentioned in the maps found in the monastery. Among the debris, there were inscriptions that seemed to reference the prince and a new beginning. This discovery reignited debates about whether he truly left to start a new life far from the empire. Although each theory offers valuable fragments to solve the enigma, none can fully explain all the available facts. Perhaps the truth is a combination of all of them, or something completely different from what has been imagined. In the next chapters, we will examine the emotional and cultural implications of this enduring case. The prince's disappearance left deep marks not only on the empire's politics and economy, but also in the hearts of its people. For many, he became a universal symbol of loss and hope, representing the internal struggles everyone faces when confronted with impossible expectations. For older subjects, the prince was remembered as an almost mythical figure, someone who could have brought peace and prosperity to the empire, but whose fate was cruelly interrupted. They saw his absence as the personification of divine injustice, questioning why someone so promising would be taken away so early. For the youth, who grew up hearing stories about the lost heir, he represented something different, a call to adventure and the pursuit of authenticity. Many dreamed of being the heroes who would finally discover his whereabouts, seeing in him an inspiration to overcome societal limitations. This duality of meanings was reflected in art and popular culture. Paintings depicted the prince either as a tragic figure surrounded by shadows, or as a brave traveler exploring unknown horizons. Each interpretation revealed different aspects of the emotional impact he had on people. Poets, on the other hand, dedicated countless verses to the pain of his departure. Their words often evoked images of loneliness and longing, transforming the prince into an archetype of everything that could have been but never was. These poems were recited at festivals and rituals, perpetuating his memory through generations. Religion also played a crucial role in shaping this legacy. Some temples began venerating the prince as a spiritual martyr, arguing he had sacrificed his position for a greater cause. Others considered him an incarnation of ancient deities, sent to teach lessons about humility and renunciation. Among academics, philosophical debates arose about the meaning of his story. Some believed it served as a warning against unchecked ambition. Others saw it as a celebration of individual freedom. Regardless of perspective, all agreed the case remains relevant because it touches on universal themes. Interestingly, the prince also influenced modern political movements. Groups fighting against tyrannies used his image as a symbol of peaceful resistance. They argued that, like him, they sought to escape the invisible chains binding their people to suffering. Even those who doubted his real existence recognized the power of his legend. For them, the lost prince was less a person and more an idea, the collective materialization of human aspirations for change and redemption. This view highlighted how stories can shape cultural identities, regardless of factual accuracy. Today, centuries later, the emotional impact of the case remains alive. It serves as a reminder that some questions may never have definitive answers, and that sometimes it is precisely this uncertainty that gives meaning to our quests. In the next chapters, we will conclude this journey by analyzing contemporary attempts to solve the mystery and reflecting on what his story teaches us about the past and present. Today, the mystery of the prince continues to attract investigators, historians, and curious minds from around the world. Thanks to technological advances, new tools are being employed in the attempt to uncover clues that have remained hidden for centuries. These efforts have renewed public interest in the case and brought fascinating information to light. An international team used drones equipped with thermal sensors to explore caves mentioned in the ancient documents, including the Mouth of Forgetfulness. Although no direct evidence has been found yet, Images captured inside these rocky formations revealed inscriptions matching descriptions made by witnesses from the time. Additionally, artificial intelligence experts analyzed the deciphered texts from the monastery, searching for hidden patterns among the encoded words. These studies suggest certain phrases may contain geographically encoded coordinates, pointing to specific locations that have not yet been fully investigated. Another significant breakthrough came from genetics. Tissue fragments recovered from the medallion found in the isolated village were subjected to DNA tests. Preliminary results indicate compatibility with the royal lineage, reinforcing the possibility that the object truly belonged to the prince. These discoveries generated great excitement but also raised ethical questions. Some local communities fear that intensive exploration of historical sites could destroy important cultural heritage. Environmental organizations also warn about the risks of damaging fragile ecosystems during the searches. Despite these challenges, the case continues to ignite passions. Documentaries, podcasts, and books about the prince have become global bestsellers, proving that his story transcends temporal and cultural barriers. These productions help keep the flame of curiosity alive, inspiring new generations to seek the truth. Perhaps the most important lesson we can take from this saga is the resilience of human narrative. The prince who never reigned represents something greater than his own trajectory. He symbolizes our eternal quest for meaning and connection, even in the face of the unknown. Throughout this series, we explored every facet of this enigma, from palace conspiracies to popular legends, passing through mystical and scientific theories. Regardless of what the true answer may be, what matters is the lasting impact his story exerts on us. Thus, we reach the end of this journey, but the search for the lost prince is far from over. Who knows, somewhere far away, he still awaits to reveal his final secret. Until then, his legend remains alive, echoing through the centuries as a reminder that humanity's desire for answers is infinite.